Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, boogers, shield, desolate, swords, peasants, vassals, mummies, pharaohs. I'm a useful idiot, and I want to talk about Egypt. And things are really building up to a fever pitch now, and the Morsi government has declared 30-day state of emergency. Around 50 people have been killed in the last week or so. And this sequence of events is roughly unfolded when the newly elected President Morsi, representing the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, was brought into power, and then he introduced some sweeping new presidential powers, and that caused a lot of unrest and resistance. And then December 26th of last year, he introduced a new constitution, and this really got people going. So we've had a lot of unrest in Egypt continually, and it's pretty much gone on for about 2 years now. So as usual, my hat's off to the Egyptian people for their perseverance to keep pushing and pushing to make their revolution a success. And many of us out here are very disappointed to see what you've had to go through over and over and over again to have victory snatched from your hands. So, but this new constitution, incidentally, was brought in a vote, in a referendum, and it won by 63%. But that number is deceptive because only 20%, 17 to 20% of the population participated in that referendum. So, so once again, we see an example of democracy kind of backfiring as we try to set it up quickly in countries that are not used to running those sort of systems. Not to say that the countries that supposedly represent the pinnacles of democracy, like the United States, we have our own election fraud problems and manipulations. But anyway, so in these countries we have the appearance of a democracy, like in Iraq. There's this appearance of democracy because they have elections and they have a parliament. But other than that, there's lots of things about them that are hardly a democracy. And Egypt is another example of that. So out of 52 million people that are eligible to vote, only 17 million voted out of a total population of 82 million. And one of the problems, of course, is we have the status quo of the Mubarak regime still in place. The entire foreign service and intelligence and most of the military has been in place continually. So there's going to be a continuity of agenda in that regard. And the other thing we find, too, is that, of course, the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, particularly when they get in power, are corrupt. And we find that again and again and again in all our puppet government. The Karzai government in Afghanistan is corrupt. The Malaki government in Iraq is corrupt. All these governments tend to be corrupt. And how could they not, with all this easy money floating around, all this aid money coming from the United States floating around? I'm sure it's very tempting. So, and then we have Egypt considering getting an IMF loan. They're on the verge of economic collapse and are negotiating for an IMF loan. And but of course that would mean austerity and higher taxes in Egypt. And once again, they can't really afford that in the current climate. And Egyptians in general seem to be pretty disappointed in this Morsi government. Besides all these power grabs, we have the fact that Morsi and the Egyptian government have pretty much kowtowed to American and Israeli interests, and haven't opened up the Gaza border with Palestine, and have honored all its treaties with Israel, and so it goes. So, and then of course the brutal crackdown we're seeing now, 50 people killed recently, and peaceful protests as well being broken up. So we see the same tactics with the military and the government used by Mubarak being used by the Morsi government. So there's a lot of eyes on Egypt right now. And then we had the defense minister come out and mention that Egypt could potentially be on collapse watch. And I think he's using hyperbole in order to get the parties to the table and make some decisions. But I wouldn't be surprised if the military exerted more control, particularly if things get out of hand more. And they're used to being in control, and ostensibly they are still in control. And Morsi is their puppet, but he will try to carve out his own territory, as ambitious politicians do. And but we'll see what happens. We have a parliamentary election coming up next month in February, and there'll probably be a lot of violence and fireworks when that happens, and we'll see. And I'm placing my money on the military, either overtly taking control or surreptitiously taking control. But we shall see. The Egyptian revolution continues, and as I said in the beginning, my hat's off to the Egyptian people for keeping their revolution alive for these 2 years now. Let's keep an eye on it. It would be a sad thing if it were not a success story, because of all the countries in the Arab Spring, all have ended up with questionable results in failed states, with the notable exception of Tunisia. They seem to have actually established a rudimentary democracy there. But Libya and Egypt and Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and all these other countries are failed states, and democracy just does not have a legacy there. Most of these countries have military governments since their independence, and they don't have much savvy at it, and it's awkward to see them stumble through these steps. And we all hope for the best. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.